Playing on a Budget is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the best Magic the Gathering singles and sealed retailer on the internet, GatheringMagic.com, your #1 source for Magic the Gathering news and content, and RogueDeckBuilder.com, my personal channel filled with innovative and entertaining Magic the Gathering rogue brews. Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com, with this week's episode of Playing on a Budget. Yeah, it's been a while since I've done a budget deck. Just mainly because it's hard to do so in Standard, to actually build on a budget and still be competitive. With the Standard environment being kind of impressive, having to use either Smuggler's Copter, Gideon, or Emrakul to build a competitive deck at the moment in Standard. But there is this new format called Frontier coming out, and so if you are a fan of my channel, you know that how much that I have enjoyed brewing and playing this format in the last 2 weeks. In fact, it's taken off in my local scene. We actually have a lot more people showing up for the Frontier tournaments than we do for either Modern and Standard. About that, we actually hosted FNM as both Frontier and as Standard. And we had a non-FNM sanctioned Frontier tournament have more players in it than both Modern and Standard combined. So I think for my locals, it makes sense for Frontier. A lot of them we started our store back in when right after Battle for Zendikar released. So a lot of the people that have been playing with Battle for Zendikar on as far as Standard, but had access to the cards that were Khans of Tarkir during the legality. And so M15 Khans of Tarkir Forward are in a lot of supply in our area, and so it just makes sense for those players to pick up the format. There's been pretty much a huge debate within the community about Frontier. Either you love it or you hate it. I'm on the side of love it. Again, it just makes sense for so many reasons. So I thought that I would showcase just a budget deck for Frontier. And this is a very inexpensive deck. It's under 50. Over at the Playing on a Budget, for the criteria for playing on a budget, we need to have it under 100. We've halved that. And in fact, you take the Goblin Rabblemasters out, this is a $20 deck. And you can easily replace the Goblin Rabblemasters with more Hanweir Garrisons. So let's just go over the prices brought to you by our sponsors, CoolStuffInc.com. You can see that it's $26.62 because they're out of Goblin Rabblemasters. And so I think that I think they're $2 a piece. So that'd put it up to about $35 for the Goblin Rabblemasters for the deck. And it's just your typical, I don't know, what do they call this? The red sly, or just red aggro. And it's going to focus on cards that interact with Impact Tremors. So you can see the Impact Tremor namesake card is 25 cents. A lot of things are commons and uncommons. The rares are bulk rare prices. And nothing, even the more expensive uncommons can't break the dollar mark here. So anyway, let's go back over to the deck tech. We are just going to run 21 lands because the Westvale Abbey it doesn't really feel like a land in this deck. It's just an alternate win condition because we do have Pia and Nalaar's Goblin Rabblemaster, or Pia and Kiran Nalaar's Goblin Rabblemaster's, Hanweir Garrison's, Hordeling Outburst. It just makes sense to try a Westvale Abbey in this deck. And then for our 1-drops, Foundry Sheet Denizen is probably the best card, as it interacts with both the Dragon Fodder, the Goblin Rabblemaster, and the Reckless Bushwhacker. Actually, this doesn't even care if it's a goblin. It just needs to be a red creature. So it actually interacts with everything except for the Pia and Kiran Nalaar tokens that come in, as they are artifacts. You can go a goblin route with this deck and just put Pile Drivers, another card that's only like a couple bucks in value. I don't think it's I think it's under $2 for the Pile Driver, and then just go kind of the Goblin aggro. You get the Goblin Glory Chaser at the 1-drop, but this one is trying to really work off the Impact Tremors. So we want dash cards like Lightning Berserker. It makes Impact Tremors a renewable resource, even if you can't attack in with the Lightning Berserker. You can dash it for 1, do a damage, and then it bounces back to your hand at the end of combat, and just rinse and repeat. Same thing with Zurgo Bellstriker. It does have a dash of 2, however, so it's a little bit harder than Berserker. We're running a package of 3 and 2, though, because we do want the 2/2 on turn number 1 is a lot better than just putting a Berserker, even though Berserker you can throw in any unused mana to pump it up. Then we have the Dragon Fodder, which creates 2 red Goblin creature tokens. That's going to do 2 damage each with the Impact Tremor. The Rabblemasters on the 3-drop. The 3-drop is really, really loaded here, so you have Rabblemasters which will put out a 2/2 and then a 1/1, and the Rabblemaster needs to be answered immediately. Otherwise, it's going to take over the game. The same thing with the Hanweir Garrison. The Hanweir Garrison is a 2/3. If it attacks 1 time, you get 2/1/1 red human creature tokens that are attacking. You could put in the land, the Hanweir Battlements. I just thought that it's probably not necessary in this deck, and it's something you could easily put in though, if you were going up in counts of the Garrison. Then I'm going to try a Kolaghan Forerunners. This guy seems pretty good with the Dragon Fodders and Hordeling Outbursts and Pia and Kiran Nalaars, because it comes in as a 1/3 with haste if you dash it in. And then say if you have a Hordeling Outburst out, it's going to come in as a 4/3 haste for just 3 mana. And it has Trample. That's not bad. If you have a even bigger board state, say you went Dragon Fodder into Hordeling Outburst, and even have like a Foundry Street Denizen, 1, 2, so there's 3, 6, it'll come in as a 7/4 with Trample. So it's a pretty good card in this deck. I'm just going to try a 1 of. Then Reckless Bushwhacker is probably the most powerful card in the deck. It's going to give everything +1 +0 in haste, give it the go wide feel. Another route you can go, you can upgrade this deck. Why I like this as a starting point is you can upgrade it to either Goblins, or you can go into a Tarka Red with the Reckless Bushwhackers, Dragon Fodders, and Hordeling Outbursts. And that's a very, very powerful and popular strategy in the format. Then we have the Hordeling Outburst, just puts in 3 Goblins. Pia and Kiran Nalaar puts in the 2/2 that can sack artifacts, as well as 2 Thopters. You can also run Thopter Engineer to give it this deck kind of a different feel. Then, of course, the Stoke the Flames is a great removal spell. It will kill the Anafenzas, opposing Anafenzas. It will kill Kalidas. That is a card that can give this deck a little bit of an issue. It can also it's just your go-to removal spell that can also go to the face. The Wild Slash is just in here to clean up a few early cards, but we want to actually be casting creatures every turn. That's why it's removal light in the main. The sideboard is the exact opposite. It just becomes removal heavy. We'll bring in Wild Slashes to take care of decks that run like Soulfire Grandmaster or Jace. We'll bring in Roast to just take care of any Tassigurs or Anglers or Kalidas or Anafenza. Those type of cards that act as roadblocks, even Siege Rhinos. Incendiary Flow we bring in versus Hangerback Walker, and there's a few prized amalgam decks out there every now and again, but anything that wants to die or be recurred, Incendiary Flow is great for that. Lightning Strikes are just kind of your go-to removal if you need to bring it in versus, I'd bring these in versus Jace and Soulfire as well. If those are 2 pivotal cards you have to kill immediately. And Exquisite Firecraft is again another card that comes in versus Kalidas and the, I'm not sure that this is actually much better than Stoke, but we'll bring it in versus like Kalidas type decks. Goblin Heelcutter will come in versus those similar decks where we are trying to kind of race our opponent. They put out a blocker. This makes a card not block. It also has dash. And the 2 Outpost Siege act is like number 5 and 6 of Impact Tremors. Except you will name dragons quite often, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, deals 1 damage. So if it's late game and they're down pretty low, you name dragons. If they're not down low, you'll name cons just to try to get some card advantage going. So tons of options with this deck. You could still go into so many different, both Chandra Planeswalkers are very viable in this format. People forget that the Chandra Pyromaster, but actually all 3 of the Chandras are pretty viable in the Frontier format. Isn't there an M15 one that duplicates spells? Maybe not. Maybe that one was M14. Yeah, so the M15 one is actually let's just look at Chandras, the options we have for Chandras in the format. So we have, the Pyromaster was the M15. So this one is legal in the format. And actually it does have some advantages over the Chandra Torch of Defiance. So Firebrand is not. Firebrand is M13. So both these Chandra Pyromasters are definitely decent in the format. Also, the Chandra Fire of Kaladesh is very... It's actually pretty decent in the Frontier format. One of the problems with this card, pre-Frontier, it was pretty hard to flip Chandra, but I think in this particular format, I think this could be a breakout card or a powerful card. Anywho, we'll get some games going with the Frontier and see how well our Impact playing on a budget $35 deck works. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Playing on a Budget. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Gathering Magic and check out our Playing on a Budget playlist, which contains every episode. Thanks again and hope to see you soon.